leader. That would be well, I guess you're not the leader yet. You hope to be one day. Minority Whip Steve Scalise. Devin, I know you can't tell us everything, but my sources are pretty clear. It's a complete Adam Schiff shutdown. Republicans can't ask questions. Republicans can't do pretty much everything. You've read this so-called resolution. Is this resolution what Newt Gingrich offered Bill Clinton in 1998?
Well, I think the thing people should be asking themselves, especially if you're a Democrat and you're on the Judiciary Committee, is where is Jerry Nadler? Nobody's seen him for like 2.5 months. He's like the missing man in action. So clearly Schiff and the Intelligence Committee Democrats, they've completely obliterated the Intelligence Committee. It's now known as the Impeachment Committee. So, you know, that resolution is just more of the same. And I'll tell you, you mentioned that you haven't seen this in your, many years in radio and TV. I have never in my life seen anything like what happened today. I mean, they've been bad in most of these depositions, but to interrupt us continually, to coach the witness, to decide whether or not what we're going to be able to ask the witness. I mean, we don't even get any witnesses at this point, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any ever. But to not let us ask questions, I've never, ever had that. And to see someone coach a witness, and, this isn't the first time that Schiff's very good at coaching witnesses. Remember, he also met with the whistleblower. So this is just unprecedented.
Steve Scalise said, look at this New York Times report. White House Ukraine experts sought to correct transcript of Trump call. OK, that's fine. And he's claiming that that Trump mentioned the vice president on tape discussing Ukraine's corruption. Now, I'm actually glad that they bring this up, because I'd like to know if you think Joe Biden, what he did was a quid pro quo. Fire him in 6 hours or you don't get $1 billion. And if his own son admits he's being paid millions with no experience, doesn't that sound like they're buying favor? And doesn't that sound like something the American people need to get to the bottom of? If Joe Biden sold out his office so his family could make millions when they had no experience, I think that's an important thing that we ought to be investigating.
Well, Sean, I think everybody in America who's objective that looks at this knows it doesn't pass the smell test. And Joe Biden himself bragged about it. He said he flew over there and he told them that in 6 hours he's leaving with the $1 billion of our money, taxpayer money, if they don't fire the guy that's looking into his son. I mean, my goodness, if that's not a quid pro quo, I don't know what is. But, of course, that's why the Democrats want to throw up all these smoke screens. They don't want you to look over there. They show you the shiny object behind the tree, and they try to create all this innuendo about President Trump, who, by the way, Sean, the law says that the president, before he gives taxpayer money to any country, has to go and verify that they are not participating in corruption. In fact, that's a law that Adam Schiff himself voted for. And so when you look at what President Trump is doing, he's trying to root out the corruption that started in 2016 with the Russians trying to interfere with our election. Some of that went through Ukraine. Of course, he's got a legal obligation to root out corruption, and that's what President Trump is doing. And that's why they want to impeach him instead of looking into the real quid pro quo that Biden himself bragged about.
So the president in the call, Devin Nunes, OK, I would say he's guilty of trying to get to the bottom of election interference and corruption. He's guilty of that. And we know also that there's no quid pro quo. How do we know that? Well, number one, the Ukrainian president, foreign minister, they both said there was no pressure. Number two, they didn't know money was delayed at the time. And number three, they got the money without doing a darn thing. So that would mean the theory goes out the window and blows up, doesn't it?
Well, there's a common theme, Sean, in all of these interviews that they have. When they bring in these State Department people, they all say the same thing. They don't have a clue about anything that happened in Ukraine in 2016 that was really wrong. Donald Trump was wronged, okay, by many in the Ukrainian government. All these supposed geniuses at the State Department and here in the swamp, oh, they don't know anything about this what happened in 2016. Ukraine's great. Ukraine never did anything wrong. But then they seem to then think that Donald Trump getting to the bottom of the corruption that they don't even pretend to not even know about, that somehow that's a problem. And that's what we're dealing with here in the swamp. And it's just going to continue to be the same thing as long as they continue to do this in secret in the dark.
All right, nice. Thank you very much. Maybe one day we'll open it up and we get to ask the real questions. When we come back, I have a question for Senator Lindsey Graham. I'd like to see him call Adam Schiff, Joe Biden, and Hunter Biden before his committee. I'll ask him when he comes back. He'll also weigh in on the shady tactics of the Democrats behind closed doors. A lot more on tonight's breaking news edition of Hannity. Glad you're with us.